Thank you for tuning in to All About the Girls, the podcast. We're your host, me, Jenny Craig Brown, interviews incredible women to learn what powers them, what inspires them, and how they make our world a better place. Let's get to it. Welcome, everybody, to another fantastic episode here at All About the Girls at the GreatNews.Life studio. This month, I have the pleasure of meeting and learning more about Marvi Bikak, who is a board-certified pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine specialist. So I'm excited to learn way more about all that means, but welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. So we'll dive into how you got to be in this industry and all that means, but tell me, just introduce me for someone that doesn't know, like myself, all that means. That's a pretty intense title. So tell me what that means in terms that I can understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long description of what I do. But essentially, I tell my patients I'm a lung doctor and I take care of all kinds of respiratory disorders. I also take care of patients in the intensive care unit when they are critically sick. I am also fellowship trained in sleep medicine, which is a completely different specialty and addresses all kinds of sleep disorders from insomnia to obstructive sleep apnea. Wow. So in short terms, I'm a lung and a sleep doctor.
Okay. And do those tie, do many people do both of those at the same time? Do they tie together well, or did you just really have an interest in both?
Well, so sleep medicine is considered a sister fellowship out of pulmonary critical care. So back in the day when it wasn't a separate fellowship, it was a part of pulmonary training. So people would understand or get knowledge of sleep disorders while they were training into pulmonary medicine, but it became a separate field. I got interested in it because of the lack of interest my program director had in sleep medicine.
Okay.
So he was basically our, program director for pulmonary medicine. He was never really into sleep medicine, and we didn't really have a curriculum. But then I became a mother in my second year of fellowship, and I was extremely sleep deprived. And I used to wonder, how people function with such profound sleep deprivation. So I'm generally interested in the topic of sleep medicine, and I realized that maybe I should take a breather and train in sleep medicine, which is considered a relatively easier fellowship because your hours aren't as intense as you have in your pulmonary medicine fellowship.
Okay.
So it was basically a break for me to get more knowledge and learn about something that I became extremely passionate about.
Okay, that's so interesting. So then that's kind of present day. Let's flash backwards, kind of go back in time. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. Where'd you grow up? Tell me about your family. Tell me about that side.
So I grew up I was born and raised in Pakistan. I come from a very small town, surrounded by mountains, so the landscape is very similar to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. We get 4 seasons. People don't know, but I'm used to snow. I'm used to the 4 seasons. So Midwest, really speaks to me. I love the weather here.
Okay.
I am, we consider ourselves a medical family. My father was a pathologist. My mother's a biochemist, and
wow.
My brother, my elder brother, he's a transplant cardiologist. So we're all basically
in the medical field.
Yeah,
yes. Impressive. And then what brought you to the U.S. and were you in New Mexico first? Is that what you brought it up?
Yes.
Okay.
So I came to the U.S. because throughout my medical school, we felt that the post-graduation part after you graduate from medical school was quite deficient in Pakistan. We don't really have such robust clinical training to take care of patients of all kinds of, acuities of illness.
Yeah.
So I wanted to advance my education. It was a big decision for me to make as a female to venture out with 2 suitcases, travel 5,000 miles away, leave everything behind, so.
Scary.
Yeah.
And how old were you when that happened?
Well, I was okay. I was 23 years old, so I was super young. But
I know, but 23 is still very young to be traveling to a new country and just picking up and going. That's really impressive. Very brave.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a very daunting, task then. But now, it just, when I look back, it's just a path that was always carved out, and I just.
It made sense.
Walked on it.
But so you came over and first to New Mexico?
I first came to Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
So I had to gain 6 months of clinical experience in the US so that I can pass the exams and do my medical training here.
Sure.
So I started in Atlanta, Georgia at Emory University as a sub-intern, and after that I ventured to University of New Mexico, Albuquerque, and then Indiana University.
Okay.
That was my last sub-I or sub-internship where, the program really liked me, and they, that's where I matched for residency, and I stayed there. I was in Indianapolis for 6 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've got some IU fans, so I think that's going to be well received.
Yeah.
Good. And so you did that, and then what brought you up north from Indy?
So, I was married and my husband was in Chicago, and he was in a very intense, finance career. So his job was restricted to Chicago, big cities. And, I was doing long distance for all these years, eventually moved to
Yeah.
Chicago.
And when did you meet him?
I met him in 2013.
Wow. So, and it was always long distance.
Yeah, for most part, it worked out okay because with your residency fellowship, you busy hours and
You don't have much time anyway.
Right. So you're meeting over the weekend. Now we look back and we're like, you know what? Those were the best years because each weekend we were planning something, like seeing each
There's
other.
a little bit of excitement behind that.
We did a lot during those years.
That's
like,
fun.
Random things, So.
Yeah, it's like, hey, since we get to hang out, then what are we going to do? And you end
Right.
up, it's not the chilling on the couch the whole weekend type of
Right.
vibe because you never get to see each other.
Right.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
So then you're here, kind of came to this region, and then because he was in this region and wanted to finally be closer.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, now working with Northwest Health, correct? And you're Northwest Health in La Porte, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been there?
It's going to be 2 months.
Okay, and how is it?
I'm absolutely in love with this move that I made.
Good.
I'm absolutely in love with my coworkers. Our team is amazing.
Good.
Our office manager is like the best person. Like I get along with her so well.
Really?
Like, we're a team, and she's a very amazing female in the healthcare field, and she's been in different offices for all these years. So her wisdom basically keeps me going.
Yeah, and what's her name? Let's shout her out.
Renee Bush.
Okay, good. Kudos to her. It's always good. It's another kind of woman along the path that you've related with, it sounds like, very quickly. And that's what we always like to do here is just really shout out those people that you can connect with quickly, or that just kind of hold your hand or embrace you quickly, or you can relate to, or whatever that is. So that's really good to hear already that you've got a lot of those folks.
Yes.
Good. Well, welcome to the region. Welcome to the area. I grew up in La Porte, so I know the area pretty well. It's pretty great.
Yes.
I think through the years, the mayorship's been well handled, and I've seen a ton of growth. Of course, since I graduated forever ago, I'm getting old, but from the time I graduated high school in 2001 to now, I have seen tremendous growth in the city of La Porte, and it is exciting what they're doing. It's a cool community to be a part of, I think. I don't even live there anymore. I just live nearby, and it's really amazing what they're doing. So I hope that you love it. That's good.
Right. No, I absolutely love it. It's just very classy, and people are very nice. I'm just like loving my patients, so it's been pretty
Yeah.
good.
You can maybe tell me if this is true. We recently interviewed Governor Holcomb. He was in northern Indiana for a couple of things. So of course we invited him to the studio for an interview, and that's what he brought up. He said, everyone always says, you guys are so nice. And they almost say it with a question, like, why?
Right.
But I think it's true and I notice it when I do travel to maybe like Chicago, if you're downtown, or bigger cities, or if you think about New York City is a really great example where they're kind of known for being gritty and kind of don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And I still will walk down the street and say hello to people. And last time I was in the city, took a run. And I was finished, and I was kind of walking back. I'm sure I looked a hot mess, so maybe it was that I was scary. But I'm like, morning, and just people look at you like you're crazy.
Right.
And I really love that, like, morning, we're walking down the street together. Let's say hello.
Right.
That's what I love about the region, I think, the most, is it's
Right.
that kindness. And I liked that he brought it up, too. Just, we're gritty, We can, because we do have the 4 seasons and we've got the crazy weather and we've got all of those things that make us a little gritty, but we've kept that kindness along the way. And I think it's really neat to see that too.
Yeah, I feel that. And as soon as we moved here, our neighbors have been great. They're bringing over like care packages.
Oh
and, like,
my
welcome.
gosh.
And one of our neighbors, he basically plowed our driveway because we don't have a snow plow.
Right. Yeah, you haven't been here long enough.
Yeah. So, like just these random acts of kindness that restores your faith in humanity.
Yes.
I mean, this is the move we needed, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's super exciting. We're glad to have you. And so your family is 4 of you kind of growing up. And do you currently have any children?
I have 2 kids.
Okay. So you're married, 2 kids. How old are they?
So my daughter's going to turn 5 by the end of this month. And my son's going to turn 2 in May.
2 and 5. Gosh. And you guys are busy parents, it sounds like, and 2 youngins at home. How do you make all of that work? Like, how do you find a way to juggle all of that?
I mean, the most important understanding, and, this is my advice to, all, younger trainees in medicine, in high demand, high demanding careers and early motherhood. I just want to tell women that it's not going to be perfect. Like you should stop aiming for perfection and just prioritize what's important at that stage in your life. And even if you're able to achieve like 20% of that, your success. Because you're not going to have a kid who's going to eat everything. You're not going to have a kid who's going to sleep through the night right away.
Yeah.
You're going to have lots of like pieces that don't come together.
You're going to feel a little like a hot mess sometimes, and that's okay.
Right, absolutely. And it's okay, that's been the transition for me in the past 5 years of being a mother. Like, no, you're not going to be perfect. You will fail at a lot of things, and it's okay.
Yes, I completely agree. We were actually just talking today in my office with Autumn about growing up, we thought both of our parents had kids pretty young. My parents were very young. And growing up, we just were talking about how it's interesting to look back now thinking, man, there had to be some things that were a little bit of a hot mess. Mm-hmm. We didn't know. Like, my dad recycled cans for extra cash. I just, thought it was because we recycled. I didn't know any better. But I think you're right. Just knowing that, number one, the kid isn't even going to know any of that. If, your children are not going to know, they're not going to notice, like you're not going to be perfect when they're little kids, because they're a lot when they're little kids. Right. And I think if you look back to your own parents, they probably had some of that too. Right. And we didn't notice either. And I think that's why. It's just because you're doing your best and that's going to be plenty.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
And any advice for them outside of that, like that you've, how do you accept that, I guess? Because that's hard, especially for most women like yourself that are very high functioning, high performing. They're in those high performing careers. Kind of that perfection side will come out a lot. Do you have a mantra or something you tell yourself like, hey, and we're all going to calm down here? Or how do you let that not creep in, that perfectionism and the want to be so good at everything?
I think obviously it has to have a system, right? If you want to be successful, you need to have a system that you can stick with, like a set of habits that you can absolutely follow. I highly recommend like developing some habits early in your life, and that will help you be more efficient. Like develop a very good sleep hygiene. That's very important to me. Good idea. Sleep good number of hours. Do not depend on caffeine, reduce the substances that, are, driving you. That's very important. Take care of your health. Make sure that you're seeing your doctors regularly. Make sure that you're taking care of your health, because that's what's driving the show here. That's very important to me. And then, set of habits and, efficient systems that can get you through your day whatsoever. Like, for instance, for me, like I cook pretty much 100%, for my family.
Try to cook everything at home. Yeah,
as much as I can. So, like I have a set of recipes that I stick with. When I cook, I make sure that I put away things as we go. Like I do not procrastinate. Like I do things on the go so that I'm not left with a pile of dishes by the end of it. So,
when you're tired and you don't want to do them. Yeah.
Right. Like, and the same thing with work, like when I see my patients, I make sure that, I do all my things like in a systematic manner. And my thing is that I get all my work done before I hit the road.
So you're not bringing it home?
No. Yeah.
Okay, that's really smart too, I think. And in that system, then you're not getting in that system kind of systematic manner, then you don't get stuck with 3 hours of paperwork at night or whatever that is and trying to flash back and remember the system and all of that stuff. So that's really intelligent too. Good. Let's dive into kind of lung and sleep medicine, if you will, or lung care and sleep medicine. Dive into those subjects, and I would assume they're probably a little bit separate, so you can kind of take one at a time. As kind of compared or as it relates to women. So obviously I want to learn about how we care for everybody in the world, but this podcast is really women-centric. Tell me a little bit about lung care and sleep medicine and how that relates to women, how we can ensure we're doing our best so that hopefully, no offense, but hopefully we never have to see you.
Yes.
That would always
That's
be the goal.
Yeah. Nothing personal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing personal, everybody. We just want to be healthy. What does that look like for women of all ages, and how can we make sure we're doing our best?
Very good question. So, like our structures, our biology, our physiology is very different than men for all these reasons. I think women are very high risk for respiratory diseases because for some reason our lungs are weaker. They are. And exposures, the same degree of exposures translate into a larger respiratory problem for us. So my first take would be for women, this is a state where, smoking is pretty heavy. I think it's the fifth, highest smoking rates like amongst all states.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
And, some of the cheapest cigarettes are sold here.
Here compared to Illinois,
it's
crazy.
very easy to be a smoker here, considering how culture has kind of celebrated smokers initially, and now we've learned through all these years that it's dangerous whatsoever. But still, people are heavy duty smokers here. So my advice to women is you are already at risk damaging your lungs more than men are. Women are destined to lose more of their lung capacity in comparison to men.
Really?
Similar ages, similar masses. Yes,
So it's going to hit us harder.
It will hit us harder. So, smoking in women is a very, very dangerous path, Same with, high risk occupations. You will never guess, but basically cleaning ladies, ladies in hair salons, ladies doing nails. They are constantly exposed to extremely caustic chemicals that nobody ever educates us that, sitting in a nail salon for hours is not good for our lungs because most of us, we're not wearing like respirator degree masks or all those things. We're sitting there on our phone, inhaling all the acetone. Eventually, this will damage our lungs.
Okay. I never thought about that. That's a great point.
I think that's something that I've observed through my years of practice. I have seen a lot of lung or respiratory disorders in women who are very obsessive about their nails.
Okay.
And it's sitting in the salon for all these hours. I've had a lot of patients with asthma who were very particular about getting their nails done.
Yeah.
And there's enough data that supports that acetone and a lot of other chemicals that they are inhaling in such capacities are harmful. Hairsprays. I mentioned people in the cleaning business, they're using a lot of caustic chemicals without looking at the labels. They're inhaling ammonia, bleaches, all those chemicals that are, basically damaging the lungs. So these are also things that you have to consider, that these kind of exposures lead to COPD.
Wow.
On top of the smoking, yeah.
Okay, so kind of try to just be mindful of, obviously, quit smoking. That's the probably the hardest but the easiest said. But also be thinking of those other areas, which
Absolutely.
You're right. Like I love cleaning. I always joke, like if I ever leave the Great News, which I probably won't because I love it here, but I would kind of go off grid and just be a cleaning lady. But you're right. I know from doing that, throughout college and such, while it's soothing and calming for me, there's a lot of there's not.
Absolutely.
If it's gonna get the stain off the bathtub, it's probably not good for you to breathe in.
Absolutely. And I know it's like some people are in those lines of career. It's absolutely important to clean and whatsoever. Explore alternatives. Use more natural cleaning agents,
vinegars and things like that instead.
And if you're absolutely using the caustic chemicals, try to buy one of the work grade respirators. P100 is a very good one. It comes with filters. So
or that, yeah, great idea. Because then you can just, especially nowadays, we're all more aware of those masks and how to get them and having them and how good they are. So I think a great way to if you got to be around it, then you can at least help yourself a little bit.
Right, absolutely.
Super smart.
Yeah.
And then jump into sleep. I know a little. We've worked with some sleep kind of people in sleep medicine previously through the Life Sites and what we do here, but I don't know a ton about that. So I would assume that's kind of the sleep apnea world, thing like that. Tell me a little bit more about sleep medicine and the things that you work against.
So, I mean, humans are spending half their lives asleep. So, it's a significant portion of your life and essentially governs a lot of functions in your body. So very, very important, very poorly understood function that a human being does is your sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep medicine entails taking care of patients who have respiratory disorders in their sleep, such as obstructive sleep apnea, obesity-related hypoventilation syndrome, which is very, very prevalent here in this population with a lot of overweight individuals. But simple things like insomnia, sleep deprivation, insufficient sleep, shift work disorders, lots of different sleep-related disorders are part of sleep medicine. The gravity of sleep and impact of sleep in our life is so much that it accounts for about $500 billion loss of GDP.
Really?
On a yearly basis.
Because we're not sleeping like we should, so then production goes down and everything's terrible.
It's linked with road traffic accidents.
I can see that.
It can escalate to as big accidents as the Chernobyl event.
Really?
It was a result of sleep deprivation. A lot of those workers were working 38 hours straight.
And then something huge happens because people aren't paying attention.
Right.
That's really scary. I love kind of learning about fitness just in my own fitness journey. And one of the things a lot of very intelligent trainers talk about is sleep. It really is. I think that's something we in our culture, we do not push nearly enough, right? Because it's almost heroic. It's looked upon as amazing if you don't have to sleep. Right. It's looked at as oh, you don't ever sleep, you're working harder. Right. Yeah. Right. And I think it's negative. Right. And I think that we should really, I've seen some movement away from that probably in the last few years, but not probably near what we should because of how important sleep is to your body. And it sounds like, from what I learned, every function almost of your body is affected by it, kind of improved by good sleep, and it's made worse by bad sleep.
Right, absolutely. And you said it perfectly, the impact of sleep on every aspect of your health is profound. Every human being, at different ages requires different amounts of sleep. So I tell preschoolers, they require about 10 to 13 hours of sleep.
Okay.
Younger kids like toddlers, they require about 11 to 13 hours of sleep.
Okay.
And then, school-going kids, elementary level all the way up to middle school, they require, at least 10 hours of sleep.
Really?
So it does go down as they, hit puberty and then they become adults. So a normal adult should at least get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. The range is 7 to 9 hours. But at least 7 to 8 hours is what we need. And then as we progress towards the geriatric age group, which is 65 and older, it comes down to 6 to 7 hours of sleep.
Interesting. I would have thought it would go back up as we get older, but it doesn't.
No, it actually shrinks. But still, we encourage whoever is capable of sleeping more, 7 is the optimum number, even in geriatrics.
Okay.
The total sleep time, it varies as we age. Then, of course, quality of sleep is very important. Make sure that, when you wake up, you feel refreshed and you find your sleep restorative. Because if you're not finding your sleep restorative, then, you need to look into whether you have sleep apnea. Because sleep apnea is a disorder that affects 75 million Americans at least. Very underreported, poorly understood.
Tell me a little bit more about that. So I know a little bit about, sleep apnea, and it's really bad for you, and you kind of stop breathing in your sleep, and you have this machine. I know there's some other ways, not the machine nowadays, I think like mouthpieces and things like that can help. Is kind of that heavy snoring, stop breathing when you sleep thing the only type of sleep apnea? Are there others? Kind of fill me in on what that means and what sleep apnea really is.
Thank you. I mean, again, you're asking the best question.
Thank you. You're getting me all, we didn't even plan these, you guys. I'm just really interested.
Motivated to tell you more. So basically, Sleep apnea comes in all shapes, sizes, forms. People assume that it's a disease that affects obese individuals. It does not. It can affect a lot of different individuals. Doesn't matter what their weight is. It has to do with the structure of your face, your throat, your airway. It's a disorder that basically when you're sleeping, the musculature or the tone or the openness of your throat gets compromised and your airflow decreases by 30%. So you're not getting the air that you need. And that just disrupts the quality of sleep, prevents you from getting a restorative sleep. So that's basically what sleep apnea is. Not all sleep apnea patients are snorers.
They're not. That's what I was wondering.
Especially women. It's very important for our listeners to understand this, that you will never hear a female telling you that, oh yeah, my husband told me I snore a lot. You hear it sometimes, but most often, first of all, men sleep pretty like they're knocked out. They'll never notice our symptoms.
So annoying. Yeah.
They can sleep through
my husband can sleep through anything, right. And fall asleep all the time. It's easy. He sits on the couch, he falls asleep. He sits in the hot tub, he falls asleep. He sits in an airplane, he falls asleep.
Right. So they're not the best observers to rely on. So first of all, that factor. And secondly, women don't snore as much. They don't. But when they do, obviously everybody knows. So women should pay particular attention to their symptoms during the daytime, whether they feel excessively sleepy, whether they find their sleep non-restorative, as opposed to hearing from family members that, yeah, you were snoring, because a lot of times they will not hear that. Perfect. So it's important to listen to your body, that are you depending on too much caffeine? You don't find your sleep restorative, and those are the things that you look for.
So tell me a little bit, in the sleep apnea world, as you mentioned, not everybody's, it doesn't have to be because you snore. I suppose it can be, as you mentioned as well. It's not just because I suppose it could be obesity, could it be? But yes. It doesn't have to be. So it doesn't have. Same thing. I know a bodybuilder that I listen to online, and he's really educated on more. It's not so much bro science. It's actually he's really smart about things like that. And he notices when he gets really muscular, he snores more and has more trouble sleeping. There's not an ounce of fat on him. You know what I mean? It's more probably, as you mentioned, the muscles that are happening here that are causing the issue. So how can we, I suppose, talk a little bit about prevention, and then let's talk a little bit about, if you are experiencing some of these symptoms, what are those, and how do we, if you're already experiencing some of that, what can we do now?
So prevention, obviously, make sure that you're within the good BMI ranges, but it's hard to, address your weight problems if you're not sleeping well. Because you're unable to lose weight when you are not getting good sleep. I would say, the best prevention is just to keep an eye on your symptoms, be cognizant about, what your sleep means to you, whether you're noticing it's restorative or not. That would be the most important key piece here, because a lot of sleep disorders are genetic, facial structures, seeing if it runs in your family, then be proactive about it. If your dad has it, if your mom has it, then chances are that you'll have it too, because we inherit the same facial structure as our fathers and our mothers. That's one thing. Some races, ethnicities are at higher risk for getting sleep apnea. That's obviously a consideration too. But the second part of your question was about the treatment part. Sleep. So first of all, it needs an accurate diagnosis. Gold standard diagnosis is an in-lab sleep study. You go to a sleep lab, get it diagnosed. It's a very robust clinical diagnostic study, so it looks into different aspects of how you sleep. But now there are lots and lots of wearable technologies that are available, and you can do it at the comfort of your own house. You can wear a small wristlet or like a ring or a finger.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, that will kind of give you a report on your sleep.
Right. And this kind of technology is literally it's advancing so fast. We're wearing these watches, and they're getting better at detecting our sleep patterns and all that. So this kind of technology is basically the future. Lots of different alternative options are available for sleep apnea treatment, on top of basic lifestyle changes like weight loss and basically addressing comorbids and all that. But other alternative methods are position training. So if somebody's bad sleep apnea on their back, then they can try sleeping on the side, train themselves to sleep on the side.
And does everybody have it worse on the back, or is it really dependent on the person? Same thing, dependent on their build.
I think it's a fair generalization that a lot of sleep apnea happens when you're on our back. You can imagine the tongue is more prone to be dependent, falls back. So lots of sleep apnea is prevalent in a supine position. But you see it in all positions, and that's the point of a sleep study. It sees you sleeping and it can determine what positions are bad for you. And then there's several stages that some people do worse in. For instance, REM sleep or dream sleep. Some people get worse sleep apnea during those stages.
Interesting.
So you can basically phenotype the sleep apnea and then treat those patients. And then alternatives, so you know about the CPAP machine that blows like positive pressure and treats you. That's basically our preferred method to treat sleep apnea, just because it's been studied so well and it's shown to improve lots of things, even your blood pressure. So
interesting.
It's just very effective. But other alternatives, there are surgical procedures that can correct some of the facial or the nasal abnormalities that can cause sleep apnea. People have polyps, people have a deviated nasal septum, so ENT doctors can make that assessment whether that problem is so significant that needs to be addressed. And then there used to be some really advanced surgeries to correct the structure of your your back of the throat whatsoever. We don't really offer that as much because they weren't proven to be completely curative or effective.
There's so many other kind of easier paths.
Right. And then there is a device that can be implanted that senses sleep apnea and then sends a signal under the tongue to straighten out the tongue.
Interesting.
Yep. And it's like a pacemaker and does it all automatically without your control.
I had no idea. That's interesting.
Yep. So that's also an option.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier kind of making sure your sleep's restorative. So I wonder if some of the issue there is that I feel like oftentimes we don't know what that means. And I think, and the reason I'm saying that is I'm a person, I always yell at my husband. He's so annoying because he is the guy that he'll hear the click of the alarm and then turns it off and gets up and like does one of these and then he's off. And I'm like the snooze button person. That said, I get way more and way better sleep than him because he's shift work. It's really annoying that he does that, though. I'm always like, how do you do that? And I want to like lay there for a minute. I don't know, and I don't think that means the sleep's not restorative. Is that, but because once I get up and get moving, I feel pretty good. I shoot for 8 hours of sleep so that I get between 7 and 8. Rarely is it under 7. Not never, but rarely. And then once I get moving, I feel pretty great. I'm not usually lethargic throughout the day, but how do we know? Is that correct? Is that something you can tell by how easy you can get up? Or is that just some people are just different? And then what are some other signs that you're getting good sleep versus bad?
My question for you, so on your days off and you don't have to get up at a particular time, how much do you sleep in?
Not much more than maybe like a half hour, 45 minutes.
So that means that you're not as active when you wake up on those usual days because you need the 30 to 45 minutes extra. That's basically the optimum time that you need to be asleep.
I get it. That makes total sense.
Everybody has a basic sleep requirement. Everybody's different. For me, it's 8 hours and 20 minutes.
Know it.
I know it.
I love that you know it in 20 minutes.
8 hour, 20 minutes, you give me that, I can
it's
do
perfect.
whatever I need to do. Your, husband, so basically, individuals who are waking up on their own at that particular time and they're able to function throughout the day without needing any naps or without like falling asleep
kind of nodding off here or there.
That is restorative sleep.
Okay. That is really helpful, I think, for most, just because you're right. Then I could probably shoot for 9. I'll actually get 8, and I'd probably be way better off.
Right, you can try it. And then, it's as you said earlier that, it's a very cultural thing to look down on people who sleep or, prioritize sleep or,
It's almost like our culture looks at it as lazy.
Right.
And most often it will make you better, more productive, probably makes your brain function much stronger, all of those things that are going to make you better, smarter, all of that.
Right.
Fitter.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can normalize normal sleep hygiene, we will actually have a more productive population with lesser mental health conditions, lesser comorbidities, healthier population, siestas or afternoon naps are pretty normal in a lot of cultures. They're very normal in Spain, very normal in Greece, and some of the Middle Eastern countries too. They close their shops and businesses and they go and they nap. And they're able to function through the day. So humans were basically biphasic sleepers. We were never the sleepers that sleep through the night and function throughout the day, because we were hunters, gatherers, and we didn't get time to sleep at a stretch.
Yeah.
So we were always biphasic sleepers, by default.
Interesting.
And that's why a lot of us experience a circadian dip towards the mid of the day. When you're like extremely sleepy after a lunch or something. That's basically our genetic makeup, and the fact that you're fighting against the circadian rhythm that's telling you, okay, the sun's still up, you need to stay up, whereas your body's like, okay, I'm already a little tired. So both functions, they act against each other, and that's when you experience the circadian dip. And in an ideal universe, if we had the opportunity to nap for like 20 minutes middle of the work day or whatsoever, wouldn't be a bad thing.
Okay, my best friend is phenomenal napper.
Okay.
I am the girl that I took a nap and now I want to lay in bed for a while. Same thing. So maybe I do just need more sleep. She will take she calls them her power naps, 15 to 20 minutes, and she's like a new human.
Right.
She's perfect. It's the perfect for her. It's perfect.
Right.
And I think that's it. Maybe you're exactly right. It's just that's really her makeup, and it works really well for her.
Right.
So as someone that works in sleep medicine, tell me your feelings towards caffeine. So we're, same thing. Our culture is based on Starbucks every morning, high caffeine, probably high caffeine and high sugar in a lot of those drinks. I've heard mixed reviews of some of it doesn't matter. It's you need to quit by 2 p.m. What is your feelings towards caffeine and our use of it and how we can be our best at that?
So funny story, when I was in Pulmonary Fellowship, one of our professors used to say, if you're drinking coffee and it's not working, then you're not drinking enough. So his mantra was that drink more caffeine, feel like it's gonna work. But that's basically how poorly we understand the substance that is caffeine. Mm-hmm. He was a pulmonologist and he had no idea that what he's saying is completely wrong. So the reality is that I personally understood caffeine more so when I became a sleep fellow. I was in sleep fellowship. I read a book. It's a very simple read. It's called Caffeine by Michael Pollan.
Okay.
And it's basically a narrative history about how humans normalized caffeine in their life, and most of it had to do with the commercial interest, making humans work more. Mm-hmm. As electricity came, we were staying up longer, and the corporates and the people who wanted others to work, they wanted them to work, so they normalized it.
So this works. Yeah, exactly. This works well for everybody. Right. Yeah.
But the reality is, caffeine is nothing more than a substance. It is the most poorly understood, the most unregulated substance that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, this can affect your heart and your sleep and probably your breathing and everything, and we can have as much as we want whenever we want. Right,
and the most interesting thing about caffeine is that it is an adenosine receptor antagonist. So basically, our brain, we have adenosine receptors, and we generate adenosine as a marker to tell us that you're tired. It's a tiredness marker that tells you that, okay, you need to sleep at a certain time. Mm-hmm. But what caffeine does, caffeine goes and sits on those receptors, prevents adenosine sitting on those receptors, so you perceive that, no, I'm not tired. But at the background, what's happening is you're accumulating more adenosine. If you don't drink caffeine, you listen to your body and you sleep at the right time, you get the right sleep, and you basically flush out all the adenosine. That's what sleep does. But caffeine just masks your tiredness and is out of your system in 90 minutes, and then that adenosine is still there. It's building up.
I see.
That's why people who are drinking large sizes of coffee, chances are that they will escalate the problem. They'll keep drinking more. They're not gonna get enough sleep because they're not getting the right triggers to fall asleep. Either they'll experience difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep because they haven't really been using the sleep or the tiredness chemical,
I see. Interesting. And is there a safe or regular amount of caffeine, or maybe it's more on the timing. What would you tell someone if maybe they're drinking too much caffeine? Would you say, hey, try to stop? Or is it more so stick to 1 cup or stop before noon? Or what would be your advice?
I mean, first of all, like certain behaviors that our society displays, like are, like very amusing to me, although I'm part of that rat race there. When I see lines outside of Starbucks early morning, and I just like want to laugh because no one needs caffeine in the morning.
No.
It's purely habit and addiction.
Yep.
Because when you wake up, you have no adenosine. You have nothing to mask. It's just an addiction that's driving you.
And you're saying, I'm tired and this is the solution.
You absolutely don't need caffeine in the morning. So if you can get rid of that morning coffee habit, good for you.
Okay.
When we need coffee the most is towards the circadian dip, like ideally before noon, like 11:30 noonish is where you should have a cup of coffee. Or, a little bit before 2 p.m.
Okay.
But no later than that.
Okay.
That's what I would tell my patients.
And just keep it to a cup or so.
Cup or so, that should be good. And also look at your heart rate. If you are the kind of person who generally is running a higher heart rate, like 90 plus, pulse, then, ease off on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to jump back back to lungs for a moment. So I was just thinking the same I asked a lot of sleep questions on how to be better. In the lung world, I'm just thinking kind of near and dear to my own heart. My mom quit smoking about 6 months ago. She's been a smoker my whole life. And obviously great for her, super proud of her for doing so. For those folks that quit smoking or maybe get out of the cleaning business or whatever it is where they're really starting to decrease a ton of the unhealthy coming in, tell me a little bit about the lungs. I know just growing up, we always learned that they're really restorative and that they'll clean themselves out. Is there hope for someone like that who has quit smoking to, obviously I don't think they'll return to normal lung, that's 20-year-old lung, but how much can their lungs improve if they quit now versus if they wait?
So, it depends on the years they smoked, the amount they smoked, and what kind of damage that has occurred as of now.
Sure.
What they have done to themselves by quitting is that they have reduced the speed of decline.
Great.
For instance, if they were losing 30 cc's of their lung capacity per year, they've reduced it to like 15.
Wow.
So
cut it in half probably right away.
Right. So you're reducing the speed at which your lungs will deteriorate.
Okay.
That's one. And then after a certain time period, we say like 15 years, you reduce the risk of developing a malignancy.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's dive into a little bit more about Marvi. Tell me about women in your life. I know you mentioned one earlier that have really impacted you through your journey, whether that be as a child, into college, into adulthood. Who are those women that have stuck with you or really impacted you?
First of all, like my mother, there is no one that I know as awesome, as strong, as inspiring as my own mother. What she did brilliantly was she dealt with a lot of different things with a lot of grace. She was a career woman herself. And, in her life, the compromise she made was that she didn't really pursue the kind of career that she wanted to because she had 2 kids. She gave us all her time. And I tell her that, that was totally worth it because, you raised
2 really, really successful kids.
And I can see this as a mother now, how hard it is. And, the biggest thing that I admire about my mother is that she comes from a very conservative culture. Nobody can deny how conservative our cultures are, but she is an ardent feminist. She is all about, women's rights, their voice.
Yes.
So I really, really admire that. I admire that she was the first woman in my life who instilled the fire in me, the grit that nothing can stop you. Like you are basically.
That's amazing.
Nobody's gonna give you power. You have to go take it. That's the voice my mom had. And she still does. And she inspires a lot of women. Like my friends talk to her for advice.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, she's very important.
Okay, that's a great one, and that's fantastic to hear. I love that. And when you started your career, I know you mentioned kind of you're very academic and all kind of in the healthcare world in your family. When you began your career, how is that to where it is today? Like, how different is that? Did you think it would be where it is?
I mean, I'm obviously very thankful to everybody in my life who played a major role. And, I feel like an imposter most of the time. Like,
I feel like a lot of us do, yeah.
Yeah, like, question, like, oh, do I actually deserve this? Like, now I'm questioning, like, am I worthy of this interview? Like, you're always, like, second-guessing your worthiness. But initially, like, my perception, I was very scared when I started my first job. It was in the middle of the pandemic. We had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, thrown in the dungeon basically with not much knowledge, seeing like 50 plus patients on a daily basis. Was very scared. I was very scared, and I was scared that I'm gonna, cause some kind of harm. And, when you are practicing independently on your own for the first time, everything that shaped your training, whatever you learned, you don't really take into account how much experience you've actually developed through those years.
Okay.
You always question yourself, oh no, I cannot make these decisions independently. I have to ask somebody. But when I was thrown in the dungeons during the pandemic, I remember the first time I had to put a breathing tube in somebody who was literally dying in front of us. That's when I told myself that, you're the only one who can save him. And that's basically the spirit that, you have to. You have to acquire and like move on, make these critical decisions throughout your life. I feel relatively more comfortable, but constantly question my knowledge. I constantly question my skill. And this is the mentality that every physician has. Like, we are always like questioning because we're taking care of humans.
Yeah, you have to question yourself, or else it's almost like that's when something will happen if you don't.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Really intelligent. Yeah. Tell me about same thing, I think you've maybe alluded to a couple of these. Tell me about any obstacles or adversity that you've had to overcome through your journey.
I mean, for most part, I think it's been a pretty smooth journey.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
I think
fantastic.
Obstacles, I mean, I did, I did meet and talk to a lot of different people in my career, and through these years, I learned that not everybody is the same, and like people will be discouraging you, people will be bringing you down.
Yep.
You will hear comments like, some of the attendings that I worked with earlier on, they told me straight up to my face that you're here because you're a good test taker. So comments like that, microaggressions.
Yeah.
Women encounter that more so than a man does. We are made a subject of all kinds of criticism on our body appearances, or on our, how we look, how we behave, how we talk. Men never have to face that. For instance, when I got back from my maternity leave, obviously we are all very conscious about our bodies whatsoever. And my first clinic, this person who was basically one of our professors commented that, oh wow, you're back in shape. You probably have really good genes, stuff like that. And that just made me like so conscious that, like, where did this come from? Like, you should ask me how I'm doing, how motherhood has been. So yes, there were lots of different events that make you think that, it's just different for women.
It is.
It's just different.
And that thought process is always kind of skewed a little bit towards us. Yeah. Interesting. And you talked a little bit about having a system. When you look at your job and your home life, how do you find that work-life relationship and the system within to make it work for you? What does that look like for you? Is it, I know you mentioned you don't take work home. Is it really like home time is home time? Tell me about that relationship, that balance, that work-life kind of status, and how you balance that.
Well, I think over the years I've learned that it's very important to be present, because you don't know how long you're gonna live. It's a very dark, morbid thought, but basically I'm a critical care doctor. I see people like all stages of their life, towards very critical point in their life. A lot of them don't make it, and that's where you see how fragile life is. I make it a point that I'm present when I'm home. I'm present. My phone is away. I'm looking at my children, I'm interacting with them, because these lives are the most important lives in my life. What I'm focusing on right now is towards a goal.
Yeah.
I want to raise conscious, intelligent individuals. That's my job, and that's a job nobody can replace me at.
Yep.
So very, very high priority for me. And this realization that life is temporary, enjoy, celebrate, and feel every moment that you experience is something that we all should remember. Because if it's your wedding anniversary, make sure, even if it's not a big celebration, make sure you write a card. Make sure you tell your partner how much you love him. Make sure you do not spare the opportunity to tell your spouse that you love them. Even if you're not talking very much, you're busy in your own,
we all get caught up in our own worlds. Yeah.
You have to make an effort to tell them, because you never know, it might be the last one. And it's a very morbid thought. We should never think like this, but human lives are fragile.
Yeah.
And we can live the best if we start living our lives as if it's the last day.
Yeah, I was just reading a book, and they were talking about some French philosopher. I don't remember who it was, so don't come for me. But he would always, I think it's his journal or his desk or something, at the top has a sign, and it says in French, "Remember, you will die." And for him, it's the same thing. Is like, if you think about, I think he basically broke down the math of how many days we live if the average human lives 86 years old. And he said it on a countdown. So if I live to 86, then I have how many days left? 6,000 or whatever it is. And then it's kind of accompanied with, remember, you're going to die.
Right.
And that's the thing, is it does feel a little more, but I think when you say it, it of course sounds better in French. But I think it's that reminder almost on the non-morbid side of go live that life.
Right.
Because those people could be gone tomorrow, or you could, and you really want to ensure that you're doing the things that you'd feel good about if tomorrow was the end for you or someone close to you. And I think it's really important, because you're right, like, if our parents are, my parents are 60 and 65, does that mean they're going to live till 85? I hope so, or 100, or however long. But even at 100, that's 30 more Christmases, or that's, however many they have left. If you really look at it as, if I'm going to live another 15 years, hopefully I live way longer than that.
Right.
But say it's 15, that's only 15 more Christmases. That's only 15 more Thanksgiving. That's only 15 more birthdays for me and all my loved ones. Mm-hmm. Embrace every single one of them, because when you're counting down from 15, that's really low number.
Right.
And so you never know what that will be. And so really, I think that's a really intelligent way to look at it. Just, you got to remember to live. And similarly, just always thinking about those people in your life, and people being number one. We've all found out that multitasking isn't real, and we're actually just being terrible at two things versus really good at one. Right. So when you're with people, that should be your focus.
Be present.
Yeah, being present in front of
listen.
the people, because you're right, especially family and children, you can't be replaced. You can't be. Right. But if someone is with you currently in that moment, that should be your most important task, is being with that person and being present in the moment.
Right, absolutely.
That's
reminds
really
me
smart.
of a saying one of my patients said to me, and he was on his deathbed, and he was having a conversation with his niece, who was pretty close to him, and he told her, and we were listening into this conversation. And he might have been quoting somebody, but he said, you know what, Lauren, don't worry about how I'm going to pass away, because in reality, there is no dignity in dying. You only live with dignity. So, that's a reminder that, this is your one shot.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
We have quick response questions. So these are super fun. I've misplaced the buzzer. Deanna, don't kill me. She got me the buzzer. So what happens is I'll ask you some really fun questions, would you rather type questions. You have to answer as quickly as possible. If you take too long, we'll buzz you. I'll probably just make a weird noise since I have misplaced the buzzer. So first up, would you rather have telekinesis, the ability to move things with your mind, or telepathy, the ability to read minds?
Telekinesis.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, right?
Oh yeah, I don't want to read minds.
So many people have said that. They're like, no, seriously, I don't want to know people are thinking of me. If the old you could see the new you, what would the old you say?
They'll say, oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, good. Would you rather be chronically underdressed or chronically overdressed?
Underdressed.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. More comfort over like the fashionista style? Okay. Yeah. I'm bougie. I like to be, overdressed is my way. What woman would you want to have on your side in a battle royale?
Well, if I were a teenager, it would have been China, the wrestler.
Okay. Yes. Nice throwback. I love that.
But now I think Madame Curie.
Ooh, another good one.
Yes.
Okay. I love that. You now own a billboard. What does it say?
Stop smoking.
Absolutely perfect. That is the best. Would you rather have the ability to see 10 minutes into the future or 150 years into the future?
10 minutes.
Okay. 150, you're like, what am I going to do with that, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It would be neat, but yeah, it wouldn't be with me. When do you pack for a vacation?
It's been a while, actually. And maybe like 6 hours prior to our flight.
Oh my gosh, you're a crazy person. I cannot wait that, like, I have to, like, at least the day before.
Yeah, well.
Oh my goodness.
Living on the edge.
Oh my God. And now, are you like a big packer or are you like minimalist?
Minimalist.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. So it's probably a little,
Yeah.
same thing. I am overpacked. What superhero would you most want to be?
Actually, not into superheroes, but let me think about this one.
Yeah, that's probably a little harder if you don't know them.
Maybe Superman.
Okay, pretty good one. I like it. Would you rather be forced to sing along or dance to every song you hear?
Sing along.
Okay. And are you a good singer or you just don't like to dance?
I mean, I don't think I have the coordination. Yeah.
Okay, fair. I like it. And last one, you've done perfect. What do you prefer, being extremely cold or extremely hot?
Cold.
Really?
Yes.
And that's why you love this region.
Yes.
And you mentioned earlier, you like to have those seasons. That's really...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, it just gives you purpose that you look forward to spring, you look forward to summer, you know?
I highly agree with that. I really don't like winters. As I've taken some time over the last couple of years to get out in the winter a lot more, so I hate it less. Like I've kind of, same thing, I've gotten a little used to it, you know, get smart, dress properly, those sorts of things. So I hate it less. But I really, and I do love, I think you're right, and I love that kind of the change into spring. And like as it gets colder, kind of that first snow is always beautiful. So I think there's a lot of things I love within it. I just really hate the cold.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Exactly. So you made it, no buzz.
Awesome.
Even Stan's buzzer, you didn't need it. Anything else we didn't touch on or anything you'd like to mention for everybody?
I think we did pretty good.
I think we did too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Tell me a little bit, how can people connect with you and, of course, your company, and if they want to maybe have you as their physician, are you accepting new patients, and how do they connect with you?
Yes, we are accepting new patients. Our clinic location is in Porte, Newport Landing.
Oh, sure.
Right next to Kroger.
That's all the new area too. It's very fancy.
Soon we're going to be moving into the hospital. It makes sense to be in the hospital because, you know, I'm taking care of patients in the hospital, like going back and forth.
Yeah,
is not
of course.
Ideal. But we'll be at Northwest Laporte. And, you know, they can Google me and they can call our office.
All right. Well, you guys connect with Marvi. Thank you so much for being on. It's been a blessing to have you. I feel educated and I've laughed a lot. So it's a pretty good combo.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lovely conversation.
Awesome. Well, guys, tune in next month for another episode of All About the Girls. And again, if you have not gotten your tickets for All About the Girls Part 8, the in-person event, that is June 1st, 2023. That's right around the corner. So get yourselves some tickets and we'll hope to see you there. Take care and hope to see you next month at the next episode.